Hi, Brian. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Are we live?
We're great. All right. Sorry, we went just a minute over on that last session, but I want to dive in right away as our participants are joining us now for the session, Safe Employees, Secure Business. I want to thank you for joining the session. So enabling a secure remote workforce is more critical than ever before. Whether you're issuing more corporate-owned devices or enabling a BYOD program for remote employees, enabling secure and seamless access to authorized apps is a business imperative. And MobileIron is here to help. MobileIron provides unified endpoint and enterprise mobility management for mobile devices, securing nearly 20,000 organizations. Joining us is MobileIron's Director of Product Marketing, Brian Strachman. Thank you for joining us, Brian. And I got to jump right on in. What are the top, let's say, 1 to 3 challenges that Cisos or security decision makers are facing right now?
Hey, thanks, JD. So let me start, just give you a quick background on myself, just so you have some context of where I'm coming from. I've been in tech marketing strategy for about 20 years. Actually, I started my career as an industry analyst, so Gartner Group type of role. So I always think of the world in terms of a strategy and trying to look around corners, and that informs my viewpoint. So, and actually, I focus at MobileIron on use cases. So I'm always trying to think about ways that our customers can use our products to empower them and make what we do for them more beneficial. So I'll roll that back into your question as, what are some of the challenges that our customers are seeing? And I'd say one, enabling a remote workforce. More and more people are working remotely, particularly now with COVID-19, but more and more people want to work remotely. We just fielded a study internally asking our own employees, who wants to continue working remotely? And by and large, more than 50% of our workforce wants to continue this in some fashion. You're not really sure whether or not that's going to happen in 75%, 50%, but it's a different world. So what we need to do is be prepared for the remote workforce. And that means part of what MobileIron does is make sure that our customers have choice, that they can choose any device. So that means an iOS device like your iPhone or your iPad, an Android device, or even ruggedized devices that we see at things like a hospital, or if you go to Target and somebody scans something and gets inventory. We can use all of those. Second is driving productivity. That's making sure that our customers can actually make themselves and make our end customers more productive. So, we do that by pushing the right apps out. For example, we make sure that IT can enable Zoom. Everybody's on Zoom calls. I know that I spend way too much time on Zoom right now. I'm definitely hitting Zoom fatigue, but for better or worse, we're using it. And so, for example, the fact that we were able to make sure that Zoom had quick updates and we deployed policies faster through our system than you would be able to normally, that's one of the benefits of using MobileIron. And then I would say the third one is improving customer experience. This is for the end customers. So, for example, we had a use case in Flix Mobility, which is a travel company in Europe, where we did is we empowered all the drivers of their buses across Europe to be able to seek real-time customer information. Things like a passenger gets on the bus, the driver can actually see where their ticket is from, real-time scan their ticket, track their baggage, all from his handheld device. So this provides a better customer experience. So we have happier customers, the driver's happier, less hassles. So, so overall, it's an improved experience. So I would say those are the 3 things: being able to empower a remote workforce, drive productivity, and improve the customer experience.
We're talking about improving the customer experience. How do you guys work with and enable remote workers? We're entering an interesting situation with people working from home, hybrid situation. How are you guys enabling the remote worker?
So we make sure that they have the choice of the right device and the right apps, whether that's a BYOD, we support that, or a company-owned device. And one of the things is making sure we push out the right apps. Apps are very important. So I talked about the Zoom example previously, but whichever app is going on, we make sure that IT has the capability to push those out. And then also, if you're talking about a remote worker using their device, it's extremely important that privacy is enabled. So, we containerize the data on the end device. So if you're working remotely and you're using your end device for work, whether it's your personal one or a working powered one, we want to make sure that your personal data via your banking app, Facebook, things that have your personal information are containerized and different from your work apps like Salesforce, any other apps that give you access to corporate data, so that the IT administrator may be able to see what's going on if you're logging into Salesforce on an app on your personal device, but your personal data, your personal interactions, your Facebook, your banking, anything else that you're doing is still yours and still private. And that's really important to our customers. When they're working remotely, using devices, the barriers between home and work aren't as firm as they used to be. So we want to make sure that privacy is enabled. And that's one of the big things that we think about.
We just heard a great session with Jim Motz dealing with threats. Question for you. How do you help customers dealing with emerging threats, given the variety of working situations and variety of networks people are on?
So that's a great question, because now threats are more important than ever. In particular, people are remote, so they're now on different networks. And maybe once coffee shops open again, you'll be doing more work from the Starbucks. So you're on a dangerous Wi-Fi. There's concerns about phishing or man-in-the-middle attacks. So what we do is, one of the things that we provide is mobile threat defense. So that means that our software is constantly checking to make sure your device is safe. And if you're attacked in some way through phishing or man-in-the-middle, your device can automatically be quarantined and locked down so that it can be looked at by IT, the threat can be removed, and then it can be turned back on, and that way none of your personal data is compromised. That's one of our native ways to handle this. I'd say the other concern, in terms comes with security, is that there are just too many passwords. I know I've got an Excel file, sitting on my desktop that I probably should password protect, but I don't, that has something like 50 different passwords for all of my different things I log into. And that's one of the easiest ways that hackers have to get into your personal data, is they hack into one account, get your password, and use another one. So one of the things we do is with zero sign-on. We actually make it such that your device, and using biometrics, becomes your gateway to access other applications. So we eliminate passwords. We call this a passwordless ecosystem. So you log into your device using biometrics, and then that becomes the way in which you access other corporate applications rather than having multiple passwords. So you're talking about multi-factor authentication across different applications, but ultimately the gateway to all of this is our device and our software looking at it from a biometric standpoint with no passwords. So that removes the primary tool in which hackers use to get access, is just to log into one of your passwords, stealing it by contacting you with a phishing email or breaking into one of your accounts and then using other passwords. So by making it all based on the device, we basically stop that threat cold.
Interesting. Can you give me some case studies? Because the breadth of what you guys are doing right now is fascinating to me, but I know it applies to a lot of different types of industries. Can you give me some examples?
So a really topical one I'll talk about is how our software is used in hospitals, because hospitals have been front of mind right now, particularly with COVID-19. Nurses are working harder than ever, doctors are overworked. So I can give you kind of a walkthrough of, say, how a nurse in a hospital would be using our software to make their day easier. So when they walk in at the beginning of their shift, they can grab a shared device out of a pool, and very often there's a series of these devices, mobile devices in a pool, charging up. They log in, and immediately this device allows them to give access to their profile. They can log into their shift, so then they're now being paid. The system knows who they are, so it automatically gives them access to the apps they need to do their work. And so, for example, the first patient walks in, and they can get access to the patient record using software like Epic to see what's going on with the patient. And as they progress through their day, if there's, say, a technical issue, we can provide real-time IT assistance through our software without the nurse ever having to go to the IT manager and take their device out and stop working. So now we've saved them time. So they're going from patient to patient, getting patient records, getting IT assistance. And then even if they need a consult, they need to talk to a doctor or a radiologist, we can securely empower that using apps like Zoom. And we are HIPAA compliant. So that means all this communication is compliant to all these heavy medical regulations. So, using this example, we've actually gone through a day of a life in the nurse and shown how, hey, on multiple steps, we've made their life easier and more secure. And that's really more important than ever with COVID-19.
Interesting. So, let's talk a little bit about what kind of devices does MobileIron's UEM work across, and any limitations? Sure.
So one of the things we think is very important is supporting all devices. For example, we want to give our users choice of devices. So that means more and more we're actually seeing iPads and iOS used in the medical industry. Something like 2/3 of medical professionals prefer the iOS system, and we're seeing more iPads. So in healthcare, it seems like iOS is the choice. But then in other industries, it differs a bit. You're seeing more Android-driven ruggedized devices. Something like in transportation, where I use the example of the driver of the bus. That's going to be a ruggedized device, probably running Android. Somebody at a retail environment using a ruggedized device to scan barcodes and show you real-time inventory. That's Android-driven. It's a rugged device. We support all that. So, and even a BYOD, even if you're, say, a doctor and want to bring your iOS-driven iPhone from home, because doctors seem to prefer iPhones, we support that. So really, we give our end customers complete device choice, be it Android, iOS, and even a variety of ruggedized devices.
I know we're in a world where you're on Zoom, you're on Slack, you're on Teams, a lot of different ways that we're all working together for collaboration. Can you tell me about how you guys help secure those collaboration apps, like a Slack or a Zoom?
Sure, and let me just say, I spend my life on Zoom, and good God, I think we're all, I've been reading more and more about Zoom fatigue and how it just being on Zoom is more fatiguing. An hour of Zoom is like 2 or 3 hours in a meeting room, so it's tough. And so the last thing you need is more hassles getting onto this. So one of the things we can do is the fact that we make sure that Zoom has the right updates, that your corporate policies for Zoom, because those are a constantly moving target. Zoom, say for instance, recently put in a new feature where you can actually by default have a password on all Zoom meetings because people were logging into and crashing Zoom meetings. We can make sure that as a corporate policy, we push out that and make sure that everyone's Zoom app must be up to date if you're going to use it. So what this does is it takes the burden away from the end user. We make sure that all of the Zoom apps are compliant. It's just one less thing to worry about because it's already a very stressful situation to have to be on Zoom all day. I mean, I honestly, I never thought I'd miss my office so much, but God, I miss going to in-person meetings. Seriously, I want to give somebody a hug. I'm just really, we're on Zoom too much, but because we're doing it, we got to make it as easy as possible.
So talk to me a little bit about what you guys are doing. You touched on passwordless earlier and really how that's a big thing, but dive a little bit more for me, if you wouldn't mind, into passwordless MFA.
So I'll just tell you, I'll talk about kind of our worldview, our overarching ecosystem approach. I mean, we have UEM, which is Unified Endpoint Management. So what that does is the overall management system to make sure that we're controlling devices. We know where devices are. We manage their entire life cycle. And then the right apps are pushed out and we can control that per user. So that is the control mechanism. We have MTD, which is Mobile Threat Defense, which is our security, which means that the devices that are under management, we make sure that there are no security risks, that there's no phishing, no hacking, no man in the middle. We control the security of those. And then our entry point to all of this is passwordless MFA, passwordless multi-factor authentication, meaning that we use the device's biometric system to log in. So you have a secure device, we're managing it, and then you get into it and access all of your apps using your face as the access point. So it will make it much more seamless, particularly people who are working. One of the use cases I think a lot about is the front line. So people who are doctors, nurses, paramedics, police, they are all out moving around. They don't have time to have 20 passwords sitting around thinking about that. Or if they need to get access to this data, they can't pull out their device and start entering in a password. So being able to just take their device, look at it, they're now in, they have access to all the apps they need. That critical 10 to 20 seconds that is saved there, particularly for frontline workers and first responders, is really, really important. And so the fact that we've made it easier for them, we think is a really valuable benefit.
We have a question from the audience. Are you also focusing on SaaS security for SaaS like Workday or Salesforce?
We are. Those are actually all apps that are very common use cases. So when we push out updates, we make sure those are very secure. We actually have an app approved store on our website. So actually, as a corporation, if you're a customer, you can have the apps that you want your end users to have, and they can grab them from the store, push them down, and we can make sure that they're configured correctly, that all the corporate policies are in place, and that you have seamless access to them using zero sign-on, so using your biometric access to it. So the short answer is yes, really easy to do.
One note I did see recently here in our last minute that we have together, once the pandemic hit, cybercrimes increased by 300%. A stat by the FBI put that out. Are you seeing customers come to you guys, a bit more with more unique problems than ever before?
We are. I mean, particularly because of the fact that the workforce is now mobile and remote. So it's harder for you to walk into your IT manager's office and say, hey, I'm having this security issue. Can you update this? I think I'm being hacked. Can you look at this? So the fact is that all of this has got to be done remotely. So that, we have part of our solution allows for remote IT management. So because you can't walk over to your IT manager's office, we can do this all remotely. We can actually, with just one click, give access to your remote IT manager. They can then take control of the phone, walk through and fix any of these issues, maybe change some of the security settings that you're worried about. So that's a real common ask. And, it's actually something that we can fix fairly easily. Excellent.
Where can we go to learn more?
I would just check out our website, MobileIron.com. I'd also, my credentials should be up here. I think my LinkedIn profile. I invite anybody on this call to contact me directly. I'm happy to help and chat and always expand my network.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Brian. Interesting stuff. Well, thank you, audience. I encourage you to click the green back button to get out of this section and get into the next session. We have two think tanks, modern security, a layered approach, and you've got a bad lever with keys to your kingdom. So we'll see you there. Thanks, Brian.
Thanks a lot.